A lot of people think you need dozens of exotic ingredients to make great fried rice at home. Well, it turns out one of the best fried rice dishes in the world from Tai Fung, a Michelin star restaurant, uses only 5. They don't use day-old rice, they don't even use soy sauce, yet somehow it still works. Today we'll go over the exact rice they use, the egg technique that gives it that golden color, and the simple seasoning blend that makes it all come together. You won't need to cook it on a SpaceX rocket booster. Everything is adapted for the average home cook on a standard burner, and you can make it in about 5 minutes. So, how do they do it? Tons of fried rice recipes, including several of my own, have ingredient lists longer than a CVS receipt. But Tai Fung takes the opposite approach. Their fried rice is essentially an exercise in minimalism, which means you need solid technique, because simple things are always the hardest to get right. And the first thing we need to get right is the rice. Specifically, what kind does Tai Fung use? If you look at their official website, they straight up tell you, Taikeng No. 9. It's a short grain rice known for what Taiwanese chefs call the Q texture, which is bouncy, chewy, it's almost springy. Taikeng No. 9 is bred for those exact traits. But here's where we run into our first problem. Taikeng No. 9 is nearly impossible to find in the States. Naturally, I did some digging, and according to my sources, the US locations use a brand called Nishiki. It's a medium grain rice grown in California that's closely related to Cal Rose, and you can find it at Walmart or pretty much any grocery store. Now, technically, you can make fried rice with any variety, jasmine, long grain, whatever you've got. They all work. But if you want that bouncy Q texture we talked about earlier, you really need a medium or short grain. So how do you actually prepare the rice? We'll start by washing it several times under cold running water until it runs clear. This removes some of the surface starch that can cause the rice to clump together, and it's an essential step when working with medium and short grain varieties. But don't let it sit too long because this will hydrate the grains, which is what we're trying to avoid. You want to start cooking the rice immediately after washing it. Now, when you're cooking the rice, getting the correct water to rice ratio is critical. This is where most people go wrong. If you use too much water, you get mushy grains, and that's the #1 cause of terrible fried rice. Most recipes call for something like 1.5 cups of water to 1 cup of rice. For a medium grain like Nishiki, you want less. I usually go with 1:1 or 1.1:1 ratio by volume. The goal is a grain that's fully cooked but slightly underhydrated because it'll hold up better in the wok. When it comes to actually cooking the rice, obviously a rice cooker is ideal. It's what every restaurant uses. They're designed to do one thing perfectly, you get consistent results, and the rice stays good in there for days. If your rice cooker has a harder setting, use it. It simulates day-old rice texture right out of the cooker. If your machine has only one setting, just reduce the water by 1 millimeter or 2 below the line, and this will help you dial in the exact texture you want. If you don't have a rice cooker, you can steam the rice with stuff you already have in your kitchen. This is sort of a shoemaker's version of how they traditionally cook rice in Asia. You just need a pot with a lid, a bowl, and something to lift the bowl off the bottom, like a steamer insert or a colander. For this method, fill your pot with a few inches of water and set the insert inside. Weigh your washed rice in grams and add the same amount of water in milliliters to the bowl. So 180 grams of rice gets 180 milliliters of water. Place the bowl on the insert, bring the water to a boil, cover, and lower the heat to a simmer. After 20 minutes, turn off the heat and let it steam for 10 more minutes. And what you end up with is virtually indistinguishable from a several $100 rice cooker. Alright, about that day-old rice thing. Most recipes will tell you to use day-old rice. And if you're using the absorption method, that actually makes sense. The absorption method tends to overhydrate the grain, so drying it out in the fridge does help. But for Tai Fung's fried rice, that's actually a problem. When you refrigerate rice, the starch retrogrades. It hardens on the outside but dries out internally, and you lose that bouncy texture. That's why Tai Fung uses fresh rice. They just cool it down before frying. All you'll do is spread your freshly cooked rice on a baking sheet and fan it until it reaches room temperature, turning it a few times so moisture doesn't pool at the bottom. You're drying the surface while keeping the inside chewy. That's the key to preserving the Q texture. With the rice out of the way, let's get into what seasons this dish. Remember how I said they don't use soy sauce? That's because it adds moisture. And with a sticky rice like this, extra liquid causes clumping. So instead, they use something called house seasoning. It's chicken bouillon powder, salt, and MSG. You get all the savory depth with no extra liquid. But here's where we run into our second problem. For the bouillon, Din Tai Fung uses Knorr's Hong Kong formula, and you can't really get this in the US. Seriously, if anyone has a plug for the Hong Kong version, let me know in the comments. For what's actually available, the best substitute I found is Lee Kum Kee's chicken powder in the red tin. To make your own house seasoning, you'll add 1 teaspoon of chicken powder, a 1/4 teaspoon of salt, and a 1/4 teaspoon or 1 key bump of MSG to a small bowl. Now let's talk about the shrimp. If you've ever wondered why restaurant shrimp taste different, it's because of what they do to them before cooking. All you'll do is take your shrimp, add a 1/4 teaspoon of baking soda and a tablespoon of water, and massage it in for about a minute. What this does is give the shrimp that snappy texture you get at restaurants, so they stay firm without turning rubbery. Then you'll refrigerate the shrimp for about 15 to 20 minutes. After that, rinse them thoroughly under cold running water to remove the baking soda. Pat them dry with a paper towel and season them with a bit of salt. Next, bring a small pot of water up to a simmer and add the shrimp. This step is called passing through the water. We're cooking the protein before it hits the wok. This should take about a minute or two or just until the shrimp turn pink. You're looking for about 80 to 90% cooked. Once they're done, remove the shrimp and set them aside. Alright, all that prep might seem like a lot, but the payoff is a stir fry that takes less than 5 minutes. We'll start by heating a dry wok over medium-high until it just starts to smoke. Turn off the burner, add 2 tablespoons of oil, and swirl it around to coat the surface. This is called long yao, or hot wok cold oil. The cool oil hitting the hot metal creates a temporary non-stick layer that keeps the eggs from sticking. Then turn the heat back to medium and immediately toss in 2 unbeaten eggs. Break the yolks with the back of your spatula and loosely scramble them. You want ribbons of white and gold, not a uniform color. No browning whatsoever. When the eggs are about 60 to 70% done and still runny, add the rice. That wet egg is what coats each grain and keeps everything separate. Start folding it together. Once it's roughly incorporated, I switch to a smaller silicone spatula. And I know this is anathema to some people, but it gives you more control and it lets you get in there with a cutting motion to really break up the grains. Take your time with this and keep it constantly moving because we don't want any browning on the rice or the egg. Adjust the heat down if necessary. I'm doing this on medium to medium-low the entire time. The cutting technique to separate the grains is essential with medium and short grain rice because they're so sticky. You'll notice the rice is turning yellow. A lot of people online swear Din Tai Fung uses butter, but it's really just the egg yolk coating every grain. This is called silver over gold in Chinese cooking. Once the grains are separated and everything looks glossy, sprinkle in the house seasoning and work it into the rice. Then toss in the shrimp and the white and light green parts of a few scallions. Keep stir frying until the shrimp finish cooking and the scallions have wilted slightly. And unlike most fried rice recipes, we're not finishing with sesame oil. It would overpower the subtle flavors we've been building. Then kill the heat and that's it. To plate, fish out the shrimp and arrange them at the bottom of a bowl. Pile in the fried rice and press it down lightly to form a dome. Place your serving plate on top, flip it over, and remove the bowl. This is how they serve it at Din Tai Fung. And one last tip before the taste test. Always make this 1 or 2 servings at a time. If you try to do too much, the wok gets overcrowded and you'll end up steaming the rice instead of frying it. If you need to feed more people, just do it in small batches. Okay, back to the taste test. You'd think a Michelin star fried rice would be complicated, but this one has only 5 ingredients and is somehow one of the most flavorful dishes I've ever made. So now if you text your girlfriend DTF, you have plausible deniability, because technically you're referring to Din Tai Fung. And if you want to try a different style, check out my Thai takeout fried rice video right here. Thanks for watching. See you next time.